Boa noite, Cambly Students! Sejam muito bem-vindos. Me conta aqui nos comentários se as suas metas para 2024 têm a ver com seu crescimento profissional. Se sim, essa live com certeza é para você. Hoje a tutora Alicia, especialista em recrutamento internacional, vai nos dar um aulão sobre as melhores práticas para se ter em uma entrevista de emprego em inglês. Para você aí não dar mole, não fazer esses errinhos bobos e não se sentir confiante e preparado para esse seu processo seletivo tão importante. Porque já pensou conquistar aquele cargo numa empresa internacional, ganhar aquele salário em dólar, em libra, em euro e tudo mais? Então manda aqui nos comentários quais são as suas metas de 2024, porque eu tenho certeza que o Cambly vai te ajudar a chegar lá. Essa live aqui também é para você tirar suas dúvidas e conhecer mais sobre os benefícios de você ser um aluno aqui do Cambly. E hoje, pessoal, você ainda garante um mega desconto em todos os nossos planos anuais. Tem plano anual começando por R$ 59 por mês, gente. É muito barato. Então, basta você usar o código que está aqui, vai estar aqui na nossa tela e clicar no link da descrição aqui na live mesmo. Super fácil, super simples, super intuitivo, para você não dar bobeira. Então, corre lá, já garante essa oferta exclusiva, porque, olha, não vai durar nem até o final do mês, hein, gente? Então tem que correr e aproveitar. E aí depois você vem aqui, volta para nossa live, vem fazer suas perguntas, tira suas dúvidas e fica por dentro de todas essas dicas valiosas. Então, bora começar essa live, pessoal? Bora chamar nossa convidada especial aqui para estar com a gente nessa noite? Então, welcome, Tutora Alicia.
Hello to everyone.
How are you? Thank you
I'm
for
well.
joining us tonight.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So, Alicia, how long have you been tutoring on Cambly?
Actually, it's just been over a year. I started in October 2022.
Okay,
It's
so
not
it's
very
been
long.
a year already, right? And Alicia,
Yeah,
you also hold a master's degree in human resources and management and have a vast experience working in recruiting and training. Can you talk a little bit about your work experience and in recruiting international talents?
certainly. I have about 20 years, almost 20 years of experience in human resource management generally, but particularly in recruitment. That has been my focus throughout the years. And the recruitment that I've conducted has been across multiple industries. So, telecom, retail, so consumer retail as well as luxury retail, the oil and gas industry, finance and banking, utility. So a wide range of areas. So and the levels have varied as well. So from entry level to executive management. So that has been the kind of range of persons that I have recruited throughout the years. And that has been, I'm from Barbados in the Caribbean. However, the recruitments I have conducted have been at the local, regional, and international level because I have worked for organizations that, for example, a professional services firm at the very beginning, but then I continued my career at a quasi government kind of institution, something similar to the United Nations, actually, at the
Mhm.
Caribbean level. So recruitment from the diaspora from all over the world for that organization.
Wow, that sounds like a lot. And guys, pessoal, vocês qual é a área de trabalho de vocês ou então qual é a área de trabalho que vocês desejam prospectar aí para suas metas de 2024? Manda aqui que a tutora Alicia mencionou algumas das áreas que ela já trabalhou, alguma delas é a sua. Comenta aqui que a gente também. E também qual é o seu nível de posição, de cargo, como ela falou. Ela já treinou até de pessoas que estão iniciando na sua carreira até pessoas mais em cargos mais elevados. Então, Alicia, I asked them to talk about their careers and what they are expecting in their careers, which level they are in. And most of the people here, Felipe, Paulo, Anderson, a lot of people from IT
Okay.
field.
Mhm.
We have a lawyer here, also Anderson from banking. Do you have some experience in those fields?
Yes, because since the organizations that I have worked for example, the professional services firm, I would have done recruitment for the organization itself, which had a variety of departments. So marketing, IT, sales, taxation, audit. So that would have given me an opportunity to recruit for individuals in those areas, in those industries. And as I said, at the various levels of positions throughout the organization. Um, Quite a bit of attorneys as well, including tax attorneys too. That
Okay.
was a specialty of mine because in one organization, I was actually responsible for all recruitment for the tax department, and tax auditing and tax law were two specializations that were key. So that was a one that I focused on quite a bit as well.
But you feel like the whole recruitment process, it kind of goes in a more general form, right? So it
Mhm.
suits for everybody here. They're looking for
Oh
tips.
yeah. Oh, certainly, certainly, yeah.
And
You
as
have the,
please, please.
I was going to say you just have the basics that would be relevant to everyone. So certainly, what they're going to be hearing here, what they will be receiving from here, would be information that they could use that would be important and useful for them, irrespective of their specialty and their focus, their industry.
Perfect. And you also
Mhm.
probably have a lot of students that reach you looking for this kind of improvement. Am I right?
Oh, certainly. It's interesting that a number of these students, they range from university students, especially at the postgraduate level, so
Okay.
master's degree and doctoral levels, who are perhaps from Asia, who would like to relocate to perhaps Europe or North America to pursue further studies. So entrance in examinations or entrance interviews that they have to undergo for those study programs. We have students like that, as well as persons who are looking to make a career change. Especially the world is a village at this time. So a lot of persons, I get a lot of students who want to travel abroad to change their career. So a lot of them want to prepare for those interviews, particularly in English, of course, because a lot of them are their targets are multinational organizations, and again moving to Europe or North America, and English and having business English skills are of utmost importance for them. So
For
I get a
sure.
lot of students who with those needs as well. Yes.
And what are your favorite Cambly tools in those cases? Can you show us any?
Certainly, there are two I have in mind. The first one that comes to mind is under the heading of Business English. And in that series, there is a job interviews lesson. And I'll just go on some material that you can see. What I
Mhm.
like about this particular lesson is that it takes you through the whole series of steps, if you will, for an interview. So from preparation right through during the interview, and even a little bit of information as to what a person should do at the end. So, for example, this slide that I'm showing, uh, a perennial question that comes up in an interview: "Tell me about yourself." So, on this slide, you are given information to help you to see how you can look at the various parts of your response. So what you should think about, as it mentions here, first you should describe your past experience in the industry, then explain the scope of your current role, and then transition into discussing your future goals. So that's some information that you could. What I like about this is the Cambly lessons also offer tips. As you can see here in the same lesson, tips before the interview, things that you can do, how you can make sure that your CV or your resume is well prepared, what you should do before the interview, arriving on time, and things of that nature. So this is a very good one. Cambly actually also has a workshop that deal with practicing job interviews as well. So I'll just give you a
And
little
if we
taste of that.
were in a class right now, like you
Mhm.
would guide me through the whole
Exactly.
process, and I would kind of making like a mock interview with you,
Yeah.
so I can feel more
Yes.
confident for the real thing.
Right. Exactly. So the workshop one, that is broken down into the tell me about yourself questions, situational questions, just give you an idea of what some of these situational questions are. So you also have the opportunity in these lessons to role play, which is very important, because during the lesson we can talk back and forth, but it is far more practical when we can actually practice what a job interview is like, so that the student can get a better feel as to what to expect, and they can become more comfortable and more confident as they go through it with me, the tutor, first, and then when they're in the interview, they're already well prepared.
Great. And on that matter about the interview, the 5 mistakes you should not make in a job interview. Can you guide us through this?
Yes, it was a little hard to narrow it down to 5, but I
Ok,
will
let's
hone in on
try.
five
But
five
just give me
major
1 second. Guys, pessoal,
certainly.
vocês estão entendendo tudo? Tem alguma resposta? O que vocês acharam até aqui das nossas ferramentas, do que a tutora já conversou aqui sobre essas qualidades e benefícios do Cambly? Ficou alguma dúvida? Manda aqui pra gente. A live é para vocês, beleza? E agora vamos partir para os 5 erros que vocês não podem cometer numa entrevista de emprego em inglês. Bora lá? Então, Alicia, please.
Certainly. So the first one I would say is punctuality. Punctuality, and I would put that under the heading of etiquette generally, because there are volumes that a potential interviewee can speak without even opening their mouths. So it's important to be very punctual for one's interview, because the entirety says perhaps that you don't care as much, you don't have enough interest in the position. So one would want to ensure that you arrive at least 10 to 15 minutes before the start of the actual interview. Under that umbrella of etiquette, again, not saying anything yet, but your attire is very important to pay close attention to dress and grooming. So we could be in a very nice dress, a really nice suit, but even if your grooming is not well taken care of, that could say to the interviewer that you are fairly careless. And that may translate into, they may ask themselves the question, is he or she going to be careless with the position, with the responsibilities? So as I said, there are many things that could be said without actually speaking. So punctuality, one's etiquette, and attire. The second one I would say is lack of preparation. Honestly, if a person does not prepare well, it is important to have researched the organization, the position, what the responsibilities are, as well as preparation for the interview itself. There's a lot of information, volumes of information available to persons on the internet on possible situational questions and general ones. So it's good to look at those beforehand and come up with information or scenarios or potential responses that one could make to these questions. So that's the second thing. The third I would say is poor grammar or language skills. So you may be an excellent candidate on paper, but if you don't communicate in an effective way, and even though English, for example, may be a person's second language, again, this goes back to preparation. It's important to be as sufficiently prepared as possible with your language skills that you can communicate effectively during the interview. The fourth area I would say is being negative or being critical. We may tend to say during the interview, well, I didn't really like my boss, or I didn't get along with my colleagues. Even those things may be true, they may be factual. It may be better to use those as examples of how did I overcome these challenges? And that would say to the interviewer that this is a problem solver. This is a critical thinker. This is the one that can change a situation from a negative into a positive one. And that's the kind of candidate that interviewers are typically looking for. So be careful of being negative during the interview. And finally, the fifth area, fifth common mistake, Manuel,
Alicia,
I would say.
before you jump into that,
Sorry.
let me ask if anyone has any question or if anyone relate or have done
Mm,
any of those mistakes before. E aí, pessoal, vocês já cometeram algum desses erros? Vocês se lembraram aí de uma situação que você escapou por ter se preparado? Conta aqui pra gente ou então manda a sua pergunta. E agora, last but not least, the fifth mistake you should not make in a job interview, Alicia?
well, most interviewers at the end of the interview would ask the candidate if they have any questions. And one of
Okay.
the worst mistakes to make is to say no.
Mm.
So we want to have questions prepared for the interviewer. So at least two or three questions about the position that may not have been discussed during the body of the interview, questions about the goals that the organization has. Where does the organization see itself in the next 2 or 3 years? And how can myself, as a potential candidate, contribute? Or how could I potentially contribute to the goals that are the objectives that have been outlined? That shows inquisitiveness. And that shows again that this is the type of candidate that is demonstrating interest and deep thinking, critical thinking, which interviewers once again love. So that's the extra. That adds to the paper that you would have presented initially.
That's amazing. We have a lot of people here thanking you for their great tips. I'm sure they will have, and I hope you put it all on practice, guys, with your your
Exactly.
challenge, your professional challenge this year. Um, Victor is asking, vou fazer uma entrevista em inglês mês que vem. Vocês têm aulas para ajudar na preparação especificamente? Victor is asking, Alicia. Já te digo que
Sure.
sim, mas a tutora Alicia vai falar como e por quê e como você vai conseguir aí arrasar. Victor is asking, he's about to do a job interview next month, and
Okay.
he wants to know if we have tools and how the tutors can help him prepare specifically for this next month interview.
So as I mentioned earlier, Victor, we have specific Cambly lessons that are targeted to job interview preparation. So if it's me or another tutor on Cambly, we can certainly go through those bit by bit in preparation for your interview. Outside of that, I've actually had students as well who we didn't necessarily use the Cambly material, but I remember a few weeks ago a gentleman called and said he had an interview in an hour and he wanted some assistance. So that is also a possibility where the candidate just wants some just in time information and support. They may have questions and they want the questions or some assistance in rephrasing the questions or making sure that the questions are grammatically correct. That kind of support as Cambly tutors, we can and do lend to our students. So we're here to assist, Victor.
Do you have any situation that occurred with you and your students that he made it through an interview or something like that?
Yes. Well, that one actually, he thought he was at the final stage of the process, but he did that interview he had in an hour. But then we had another lesson, a follow-up lesson, and he said he has another interview with the CEO. So that was
Mm.
successful. But then I recall a few others. There's another student I remember from Asia who was preparing to move from one multinational to another, and we went through a series of lessons on Cambly where we specifically prepared for the job interview. And interestingly, that person was required to make a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation in English as part of the interview process. So he actually gave me his script and we went through the script together so that, again, we worked on grammar and we worked on expression that would have been natural, because sometimes we may use Google Translate, but it may not be natural native English. So that was another example where as on Cambly, we were able to assist, or I was able to assist the student where the person was successful. That one actually did get the job. He's, I think, almost a year into his new position.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, like it stays clear that a job interview, like a hiring process, is not limited
Hmm.
to one interview, one that you may occur many phases that you have to go through, and you have to be confident in the real life
Exactly.
English to go
Yeah.
through, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And, pessoal, vocês têm alguma dúvida que vocês querem mandar? Tô vendo muitos elogios. Que bom que vocês estão gostando da nossa live. A lot of compliments here, Alicia. But I'm asking if they have any questions, any
Questions.
things
Yeah.
they would like to ask you and take advantage of this opportunity.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, Gabriel. I'm a student in Cambly for a month now. Confidence, conversations, and real understanding has really improved this past month,
Okay.
especially in the private class. So he has here another
Hmm.
compliment. And
Hmm.
guys, if you want to have class with Tutor Alicia, of course, her profile link is on our description here on the live as well.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and Alicia, so but last but not least, as a HR specialist and English tutor, what are like the 3 golden tips for people who want to improve in their careers this year?
Well, going back to something I said earlier, linked to one of the common mistakes made, it's important to do one's research. If you're thinking of a career change, it's important to research not only the position, but also the country, the organization, because each culture, each organization has its own nuances. So it would be good to gather as much information as possible, so that when a person is considering moving, and they do have an interview, they have that background information to work with. It's important to, I should have said this first actually, start your journey on Cambly. Because because it's a fundamental way, I found, of persons who want to improve their English skills. So the focus, and I say this a lot to my students, the focus is not just on being understood, especially if you're on Cambly for professional reasons, for career reasons. It's also important to be understood in a clear way. So clarity is critical, as well as accuracy. So communicating with one's friends or relatives is quite a different ball game than communicating in the business world. So Cambly certainly can assist with that. So if a person is not already on Cambly, or if they are, I encourage them to keep consistent with their lessons there to develop those language skills. And thirdly, I would recommend to build one's network. Reach out on platforms such as LinkedIn, Facebook, or similar platforms. That way you expand your knowledge base and expand your opportunities for career moves as well. I find when you talk to people, when you communicate with people, it's amazing how things open up. So keep active on those social media platforms, and you would be a lot more aware of opportunities as they arise to make a career move.
And best if you do so in English, right?
Yes, of course. Certainly.
We have 2 questions here. One is from
Sure.
Gabriel. He's
Hmm.
asking if there is any kind of response that might sound a little cliche and it's not good for you to go in this era.
Not so much cliche, but saying I don't know. For example, the student I was referring to earlier that had that interview that was coming up in an hour, he said that one of the things that was important for him was having client experience. Sorry, I should say experience with external clients, and he said he had none. And I probed him a little. I said, "Do you really have none?" And then we turned it a little. I asked, what kind of experience do you have internally? And he did have quite a few experiences internally. So he had internal clients. So my suggestion to him was, don't let that be a stumbling block during the interview. Like, I don't know, or I have no example of that. Try to think of something that you have experience with and see how it could relate to what is being asked. So with that particular student, he recognized, well, yes, these are internal clients, but the way I service them, how I treat them, the principles are pretty much the same as to how he would treat an external client. So then he had a story or an example to share with the interviewer. So that's something that's very important. Interviewers like stories. They like to hear that you have had specific experience in what they're looking for. So if you don't have that specific experience, then think about something that you can extend to that. Or you might also say, use a hypothetical situation. If I have not had that actual experience in real life, this is what I would do hypothetically. Because at least there, the interviewer could understand, okay, this person, if they're faced with a challenge like that, they are imaginative and they could think on their feet, so to speak. So saying no, or I don't know, or I had no experience in that, is a no-no. I wouldn't recommend that. There's a way to flip it on its head.
And those are also great tips. But for example, if a person say, what is your worst trait of personality? And you say, oh, I'm a perfectionist. I think that sounds really cliche. Do you think those kind of answers like lack something?
Yeah, I could see that. And we want to be careful to seem like a perfectionist as well, as though there's nothing wrong with us, because that common interview question, what are your weaknesses, and for a person to say no, everything's okay with me, we know that that's not true. So it's good to be humble and look for ways to demonstrate some humility and show the interviewer that yes, this may be something that is a weakness, but this is how I'm working to improve on it.
Okay, we have another question here from João. And what about salaries? Should we start this issue or wait to be questioned by the recruitment person?
In this day and age, I see nothing wrong with asking, especially if that is information that we have not received before the interview. It may be it's okay to ask perhaps for salary range. It may be a little rude to ask maybe for a specific number, but if the interviewer is willing to give a salary range, there's nothing wrong with asking for that. And that is actually a good idea, because it doesn't waste anybody's time. It doesn't waste the interviewer's time or yours, because if what you're willing to accept is definitely nowhere what the interviewer is willing to offer, then you can cut the situation or the process right there. So it's a very good question, actually, because
Hey,
it saves
João.
time, in my opinion.
João, então go for it. If this is an
Yes,
important issue for
exactly.
you, just go for it, right?
Exactly.
Alicia, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge with us and all those amazing tips. I'm sure that people here has really appreciated, myself as well. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
You're welcome.
And so, as I mentioned, if you guys want to have class with this amazing tutor, please find her link below in the description of this live. And Alicia, I'm sure you're going to have a lot of new students looking for you. So,
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
thank
Thanks for
you.
having me.
See you next time, Alicia. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Então é isso, pessoal. Gostaram dessa nossa live? A nossa tutora Alicia, como ela, tem muitos outros tutores super preparados, conectados com o seu interesse, e além de especialistas em RH, em recrutamento internacional, também temos professores das mais diversas áreas profissionais. Então, se você é aí profissional de TI, marketing, law, né, direito, temos professores super qualificados de todas essas áreas para vocês aprenderem jargões da sua área, passar em exames, em tudo isso. Então não perde tempo não. Nossa promoção de ano novo tá aí, acaba em breve, mas dá tempo de você aproveitar, inclusive indo agora com esse código aqui, ó, no link que está na descrição da nossa live e garantir o seu plano a partir de R$ 59,00 por mês, gente. É muito barato, então é só ir lá e aproveitar. Ficou alguma dúvida? Quer alguma questão? Quer saber um pouquinho mais sobre a nossa plataforma? Pode sempre entrar em contato com a nossa equipe pelos nossos canais de comunicação, help@cambly.com, pelo nosso e-mail e também pelas nossas redes sociais. Lá nas nossas redes sociais você também encontra muitas informações preciosas sobre como você tira os melhores benefícios da plataforma e também conhece os tutores e tudo mais. Então segue lá, gente. Estão aqui os links todos para você conferir e não perder as melhores oportunidades aqui do Cambly. Então é isso, pessoal. Por hoje é só e até a próxima. Tchau, tchau!